Live from New York. This is the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Friday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How you doing today on this Friday?
Doing great. Always happy on a Friday.
Got a lot to talk about. NFL, NBA. We're doing a lot of lists. NFL over-unders. There's a lot to get into today for tonight's show. Let's get into a little bit of some cool, breaking news. I guess you would call it. Let's open with our first topic of tonight's show.
Okay, well, it's Deshaun Watson. Cleveland Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson took to Instagram saying, having his back against the wall only fuels his motivation to prove doubters wrong. Here's his quote. Everyone doubting me. Everyone don't believe in me. Everyone don't think I can get back to where I was. But I know and I believe the work that I put in, that I believe in myself, the peace that I've been channeling the last couple of months, I know I'm going to be way better than before. So today the Browns reunited with Joe Flacco on a one-year deal worth up to $13 million. I guess maybe they don't believe Deshaun's inner channeling. What's your reaction to Watson's message and to the Browns bringing back Flacco?
Well, I think right now, one thing is very clear. Deshaun Watson will never play another meaningful snap in a Cleveland Browns jersey ever again. And I think as it currently stands, if he ever does hit the open market, he will never be considered a valuable asset for any team ever again. I don't even think at this point he would be classified as a backup quarterback because his production on the field since coming over to the Cleveland Browns has been some of the worst production in NFL history. His efficiency rate is bottom 5 all time. That's an issue for a guy making $230 million fully guaranteed. This Cleveland Browns roster, though, is not great to begin with because you lost your starting running back who, yes, dealt with a bunch of injuries and never got to where he used to be in Nick Chubb. Currently your starting running back is Jerome Ford. Jerry Jeudy had a fine season, absolutely a fine season. But as it currently stands, this roster is not something that is going to go out there and dominate or compete for the AFC North. They're not. And in fact, their win total is 4.5 over under. So even Vegas is saying, yeah, this team's barely going to win a game. And I think as it currently stands with Joe Flacco and that the reuniting with Joe Flacco, Flacco's been their best quarterback in several years. I mean, how far do we have to go back to find a competent Browns quarterback? Baker Mayfield, maybe. But Joe Flacco won Comeback Player of the Year, averaged over 320 passing yards a game with Cleveland, and that was coming off of his couch, which is impressive anyway. And I think moving forward, the way Cleveland might look at this is, could that be now Travis Hunter as their draft pick? Abdul Carter is their solidified draft pick? Because having Kenny Pickett, having Deshaun Watson, who's trying to make a comeback and could this year, and having Joe Flacco on your roster, that's like $50 million worth contributed to 3 quarterbacks, one of which the Browns, supposedly the quarterback coach and the GM have both said that they don't think Kenny Pickett got a legitimate shot with the Pittsburgh Steelers, which that is ridiculous anyway because they did give him a shot. He just wasn't any good. That's why he got traded to the Philadelphia Eagles to be their backup. Joe Flacco's ancient. However, his production has not really fallen off a massive cliff. Has it decreased? Obviously. He got replaced by Anthony Richardson after coming in for Richardson. But still, he's a very old quarterback who could still occasionally, 2-3 games you put him in, he could win you maybe 2 out of those 3. And then Deshaun Watson, well, we already know, and like I said, bottom 5 all time in passing production. So I think it's hilarious, utterly hilarious, that you heard the owner, Jimmy Haslam, say that this was one of the worst decisions and a complete swing and miss on paying Deshaun Watson and acquiring him. You let Baker Mayfield go, who's probably been your best quarterback in your franchise's history as of late. And right now you're stuck with a backup, an aging backup, and a guy who keeps getting hurt and re-ruptured his Achilles and just isn't any good anymore. So the Browns are a complete mess, an utterly complete mess. So my reaction to Deshaun Watson's comment is, well, we heard this before. We've heard it after the 11-game suspension and you didn't perform great. We heard it that following season you got hurt. And we saw it this year at the beginning of the season and you were terrible. So I think we could all say, in the past 3 years, you've been terrible. So it's another prove it situation. And so far, you haven't proven anything. So my advice would be get healthy first because you've been banged up, and poor performance. So Yeah, that's my reaction. I found hilarious. You signed Joe Flacco and reunite with him after all this, because now I also don't think Kirk Cousins is going to be a potential option for you.
Right.
Because then you would have 4 or 5 quarterbacks.
That's what I was thinking about, that Kirk Cousins now is kind of off the table when they sign Flacco. And it's interesting, we've been waiting for a 40-year-old quarterback to sign with the NFC North. We didn't think it would be Joe Flacco with the Browns. We thought it would be Aaron Rodgers with the Steelers, and that may still happen. We'll have to wait and see. But I think that Deshaun Watson is nobody else to blame but himself. I mean, he should have taken better care of his injury, right? He's out walking around on it when he wasn't supposed to be, turned his ankle and re-injured it. That's on him. I'm sorry. And now he's jeopardized this whole 2025 season. And the Browns, rightfully so, have said, sayonara. We're going to go with Joe Flacco this year. And you'll be in the quarterback room, but you won't be able to play. And Kenny Pickett will be there too. And maybe a rookie quarterback, and we're not so sure who that might be. Now that Flacco was signed, I think the pressure's off to draft Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward if he's there at number 2. It might be interesting if it was Cam Ward there at number 2. Maybe they would reconsider, but I think they're going to go with Abdul Carter. And I said that on the last show. They want to have Myles Garrett and him together, and they have a up-front rushing attack that is going to be elite and beyond what others have seen. That's what they think can happen. So I'm pretty sure that's the way they're going to go. Deshaun Watson, I think that Haslam made a huge mistake by coming out and saying the things he did when Watson still has 2 years left on his contract, and those are guaranteed years. Why would he say that stuff? I just think it's an emotional thing. And now Watson reacting, saying everybody doubting me. Well, why wouldn't they? He thinks he can come back and play better than before. Well, the way you were playing with the Browns was some of the worst play ever. So it wouldn't be. That's not a very high bar to jump over to be better than you were when you were playing with the Browns. And playing with the Texans when you were good is a long, long time ago. So looking at Flacco, whether he can come off the couch again and on a 1-year contract, the Browns drafting at number 2, favoring a quarterback who could be more of a developmental prospect instead of someone who was expected to come in and start right away. This could mean the Browns will not go with a quarterback at number 2 because any quarterback taken that high would be expected to start immediately. Quarterback room is Flacco, Pickett, and Watson, and likely a developmental quarterback, somebody they can pick later in the draft, maybe someone like Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe. Flacco's getting $4 million contract that could be worth up to $13 million, $9 million in incentives tied to whether he even starts. Could be a bridge to a drafted quarterback. There could be a backup all season. We'll have to wait and see how Kenny Pickett performs in the preseason. Now they will likely pick Abdul Carter, as I said, and select a quarterback either second or third round, I think. They have 4 picks in the top 100, so there'll be a quarterback there for them to pick. Based on the comments by Haslam, it's doubtful that Watson will ever play for the Browns again, as you mentioned. Flacco is likely starter, said that in 2019 he wasn't interested in mentoring a young quarterback, but at age 40, he may be more open to that idea.
Well, again, I'm confused, and maybe you could explain it to me. Why don't you like Jimmy Haslam saying that this move was a mistake? I still don't understand why
because he's still got 2 years under contract. I don't see why you'd say that about a player that you're obligated to pay all this money to.
Because they have to pay him regardless.
They have to pay him regardless.
Or not.
But why would they do that? Maybe they think, well, maybe we'll try to trade him and get a little bit of money back, and they've just deep-sixed any chance of getting anything for him by saying all this stuff. That's so terrible.
I'd be concerned for the team who wants to trade for him.
I think it's the wrong thing to do. I think when you've made an investment in somebody and they still may have some residual value, you don't come out and say they're worth nothing.
Yeah, but where's the value? And that's
he could play and not in 25, but in 26.
Right, but where's the value? His production on the field is essentially a negative.
He thinks he may be able to come back and play well. Who knows?
Yeah, but I mean, if we take a look at just his production on the Cleveland Browns
It's
so
been
far,
terrible.
it's been garbage.
Yeah,
So
but the Cleveland Browns have been pretty bad, too. You look at their offense has been pretty bad, right? When he was out there, they didn't really
blame
have any
Jameis
running
Winston
back.
for a decent
They
amount
didn't
of that
have
last
They didn't
year.
have any real running back. Their offensive line was not good. He got banged up. He was being hit all the time. He played hurt for a while, too. You can give him credit for trying to play when he was hurt. He didn't really have the weapons to very much on offense, I don't think. I don't think it's totally his fault. But the fact that he re-injured his Achilles, that's on him. That should never have happened. And I can see why they're upset by that, but it's an emotional reaction. It's not they didn't make a business decision when Haslam came out and said, we blew it and he's never going to play with us again.
Well, as you said on the last show, emotional decisions are normally the wrong ones.
They are, and I think that was the wrong one.
That's interesting. All right, let's move on to our next topic here, which is...
Okay, the DraftKings just dropped the over-under win totals for the 2025 NFL season not too long ago. Nate, who do you like going over or under?
All right, well, let's begin. So we're going to do this. I'll do my over-unders, and then we're
doing it for 6 teams, right?
We're doing it for... We've decided to pick 6. We didn't want to go through the entire 32. So we decided to pick 6 teams, and we'll decide, how many are over, how many are under. So let's begin with my first one, shall we? So my first pick is the Miami Dolphins. Are they going to go over or under their 8.5 win total? And for me, they're going to go under their 8.5 win total, and here's why. Teron Armstead, their best offensive lineman, when their offensive line was already issued, your best one just retired. So as it currently stands, you need to fill in that spot. Your defense also needs to be worked on massively. And also, and most importantly, that offensive line, you have a quarterback who, if somebody touches him, he will get concussed. That's a big issue. You also lost a massive touchdown leader in Raheem Mostert. You're stuck with Davon Achane, which he's a fine running back, absolutely a fine running back, but scoring could be a potential thing because Mostert got a bunch of touchdowns. Tyreek Hill is piecing out of Miami. Will he stay there the entire season, or will he get traded? There's a lot of questions surrounding Miami, and I do think they're fortunate enough to have a relatively high draft pick. It's above midway. I think they have the 13th overall pick. So going into next year, they do have a relatively easy schedule, but I'm actually projecting that most of these players didn't get so banged up that they're going to miss some games here. So for me, 8.5 is too much. Way too much for a quarterback who gets concussed easily, who they don't have a phenomenal running game. Their offensive line just lost its best offensive lineman, and their defense needs a lot of work. Give me the Miami Dolphins on the under for 8.5. Let's go to my next one. The New England Patriots. I couldn't believe this when I saw it. I thought it was 7.5. It's 8.5, which is crazy. So for me, I'm obviously going to go with the under here. I do not trust the New England Patriots, year 2 of Drake May, who, by the way, didn't play that great. We could talk about the offensive line, and I have extensively, but I think overall the offensive line wasn't incredible. Like I said, their schedule is relatively easy. We're ranking it about 8th easiest schedule in the NFL. But I think Drake May needs to improve drastically. You got Stephon Diggs in there now. You're trying to rebuild that offensive line. Your running game, I still don't trust. We loved Ramondre Stevenson initially, but now he can't even hold on to the football anymore. Antonio Gibson was a complete waste of money last year. He's going to try to improve on it this year. And overall, Drake May just needs to play better. Way too many turnovers in late-game situations, literally throwing game-losing interceptions. The defense, I'll give props to Mike Vrabel and Elliott Wolf for this offseason when it comes to defense. You got Milton Williams, you got Carlton Davis, you got Harold Landry. You filled in some very nice pieces. I like Clevon Chasen. Some people don't because he didn't play that well over the course of his career. I also think that going into this draft, depending on what the Browns do, and then depending on what the Giants do, because we just saw Abdul Carter post a Lawrence Taylor photo on social media, could he be trying to say, hey, Giants, pick me? Who knows? I think that if he's available, you go Travis Hunter, because then he could play wide receiver. How about your wide receiver core? And play defensive back, because I don't think personally, and I've said this repeatedly, Marcus Jones can do much. He's a nifty little shifty guy who scored a couple touchdowns offensively. It was cool to watch. But he's 5'8", gets mossed. I saw him against the Bengals a couple years ago. T. Higgins was just destroying him. I mean, 5'8", trying to play cornerback against bigger guys, it does not work out very well. He could be a nice gadget, shifty guy on both sides. I think you should veer him more towards the offensive side of the ball. But I think having Travis Hunter in there as a nice cornerback will help you out. But this Patriots team still needs about 1 or 2 more years. Mike Vrabel's first year. Think about how valuable Mike Vrabel is. What was the Patriots' win total last year? 4.5, and now it's 8.5? Mike Vrabel and a couple of pieces are now a 4-point swing. I'll take the under here for this one. Let's go to the next one. The Pittsburgh Steelers, of course, they're at 8.5 because everybody's banking on the potential that Mike Tomlin will finally get his first losing season. And I predicted that last year, and I was wrong. So what about this year? I'm not going to make the same mistake. I'm saying the Pittsburgh Steelers win at least 9 games here, and I think it just makes too much sense because I do think when it's all said and done, Rodgers won't retire, even though at this point it's just getting ridiculous because there's literally only one option besides retirement, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I think that with Aaron Rodgers, and you also you need to obviously work on your running game, and I do think they'll draft a very good running back in this draft. But offensively, you have George Pickens, you have DK Metcalf, you have Pat Freiermuth. Your defense should be phenomenal, as it always is through the first half of the season, and you have some stability at the quarterback position, who Rodgers' game, it's been consistent. It's been very, very consistent. It's not like Russell Wilson where the first 5 games, you're like, oh my God, he's crazy, and then the last 5 games he loses, and his offense averages 14 points a game. When it comes to Rodgers, we saw a little bit of an uptick about from week 8 to the end of the season. The first 7 weeks, he was terrible. But from week 8 to week 18, it was pretty good. 18 touchdowns, 4 picks. The win total didn't really add up because just the team was a complete mess last year. Jeff Wilbrick, head coach, and you also had Todd Downing and Nathaniel Hackett swapping from offensive coordinator roles. But I do think that the Steelers will get at least 9 wins, and I'll take the over for that. Let's go with the next one here. Cleveland Browns. We just talked about them in the prior topic. What do I think? A 4.5 win total. Now, the favorite is obviously to go over, but I'm actually going to take the under here. I'm going to take the under. Because if you take a look at their schedule, shall we? And we take a look at the projections of their win probability. If you take 50% or more win probability, they win 1 game. Let's help them out a little bit more. Let's take 40% win probability or higher. They win 3 games. So this is a terrible Browns team as it currently stands. You have no running game. Your offensive line is not great. David Njoku's a fine tight end. Wide receiver core, you have Jerry Jeudy. That's fine. Cedric Tillman put up some numbers before he got injured. But as it currently stands, you have Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, and Deshaun Watson. And I just think I'm going to spitball here, as we just talked about. I don't think they're going to get Shedeur Sanders because now supposedly Shedeur doesn't even want to be picked in the top 3. So I think as it currently stands, this team is not great. I will take the under on the worst team in the NFL. Probably since, 2000, they've been consistently a terrible team. They're one of, the only 2 0-16 teams in NFL history? Yeah, they made because Joe Flacco threw for 320 yards. Yes, they did make the playoffs, but still, nobody's counting the Cleveland Browns as a decent team, especially in the AFC North, which is going to get better year after year after year after year. I'll take the Browns on the under here. Let's go to the next one. The Los Angeles Rams, 9.5. What are we going to do about the Los Angeles Rams after nearly knocking the Eagles out of the playoffs last year and would have stopped them from making the Super Bowl and ultimately winning it? What do I have them going? I'm actually going to take the over on the 9.5 here because I think the NFC West just saw its the weakest possible NFC West in a few years. Because the 49ers were a mess. The Cardinals were about average. They're not going to do anything. And the Seahawks were just a surprise team. But now with the Rams, I think they made some very good moves. You've shored up your defensive line. You took Cooper Kupp, whose production has declined rapidly over since he won the Triple Crown in 2021, and you replaced it with Devontae Adams, who just showed you last year with Aaron Rodgers that his production has remained largely the same. His quarterback just can't be Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, or Desmond Ridder. That's all I got, or Brian Hoyer. Or Jimmy Garoppolo. As long as he has a competent quarterback, and I think a top 10 quarterback in Matt Stafford, we could still see Devontae Adams as a serious wide receiver threat. They do need to shore up their defensive back, and the offensive line is still relatively good. I think you can get maybe another depth piece because last year we saw there was injuries all over the place. So maybe you want to build up the depth in the draft. But the defensive line was incredible. I'm trying to remember the name. Jared Verse, defensive rookie. That's what I was going to talk about. I mean, we saw in the playoff game against the Minnesota Vikings. Sam Darnold got sacked 9 times. He looked scared. We saw seeing ghosts, Sam Darnold. And we saw against the Eagles, they were literally one Jalen Carter sack away from potentially moving on. So I think this team is going to be very dangerous in an NFC West where the 49ers just lost 17 guys. Can they replenish 17 guys in one draft? I'm going to go with no. And also, their best wide receiver core that they had is all old, sometimes, at least we saw last year, banged up, and CMC has been dealing with tendonitis in his Achilles in both of them. So who knows what the hell's going to happen or what his production will look like. I'll take the Rams on the over. And finally, the Ravens, 11.5. Very risky. Now, 11.5 is the largest over-under win total of the season. So what do I have the Ravens doing? I have them going over. They've been a very consistent regular season team. And as long as Lamar Jackson, because there was a 2-year stint where he played 12 games, because after 12 games, he would get banged up in December and January. So as long as he stays healthy, I would say that this team will be a perfectly fine regular season team. We saw Derrick Henry be an incredibly dominant running back, even at 30-plus years old, and I think that will continue this year. The offensive line will obviously improve. Zay Flowers is still a great wide receiver. People were coming at us for saying Zay Flowers is a great receiver, even though he was a rookie. Last time I checked, rookie receivers could still be good. But I'm just going to throw it out. He had a great year, too, though. Rashad Bateman, healthy, very productive, deep ball receiver for Lamar. It was great. Mark Andrews, he's got to get some more love, and I think he will this season. He started off very slow, and then infamously against the Bills, he dropped the 2-point conversion, which would have tied the game. So maybe he gets some more love. And they also just got DeAndre Hopkins in the offseason. So I think the Ravens are going to be very good offensively, and I'll give them credit. Brandon Stevens, one of the starting cornerbacks, is now on the Jets. So you actually remove the liability for your team. So I think you'll improve drastically this season on defense, which obviously was an issue early on. Everybody talked about how bad their defense was early, and then it picked up second half of the year. I think you'll start off very hot. I think this team is going to be very dangerous. Give me the Ravens on the over. But those are my over-unders. Dolphins under, Patriots under, Steelers over, Browns under, Rams and Ravens both over.
Okay, well, those are interesting picks, and you kind of went with the teams that had good results last year, except for the Browns and the Dolphins won 8 games, right?
Yeah, they won 8 games. Patriots.
The Patriots were terrible. So 2 terrible teams, and the others were kind of winning teams.
Steelers, Rams, Ravens.
Yeah. So I chose to go with the teams that were generally very poor last year and have high draft picks. And I'm starting out with the Jaguars, and the over-under is 7.5. I have no idea where they get that from. I don't see that. I look at their schedule. I look at the fact that they've turned over their leadership yet again with a brand-new head coach, a guy who was supposedly an offensive wizard and really hasn't had that much NFL experience, but a lot of experience in college. Came up to the NFL, did well a couple of years, kind of stiffed the Bucs in the way that he took the job, and I don't know. And they have a new GM who comes over from the Rams who looks pretty credible. Maybe he can help them on their offense because they've got a bunch of holes. Defensive line, I had them picking Mason Graham in our first 10 picks. They're picking at number 5. So I think they're going to fill that hole, but they've got holes at cornerback, safety, offensive line, and wide receiver. And they have Trevor Lawrence coming back off an injury. And we're going to talk a little bit more about him and his thoughts later in the show. But then I look at their schedule. You know, they got a pretty tough schedule. They're playing 6 teams that were playoff teams last year. They have the Colts in their division, who I think could be better. They have they probably beat the Titans, who I don't think will be very good. The Seahawks could be better with their new coach and not with their new coach, but they have a new quarterback and Darnold. So I think they could be better. I have them winning just 5 games, so I have them under. They were 4-13 last year. I have them improving 1 game because of all the changes. Trevor Lawrence coming back off an injury. We don't know what the offense is going to be like. They have a pretty tough schedule. I have them winning 4 games at home and only 1 on the road. I have them finding a way to beat the Cardinals away, and so I think it's going to be another tough year for the Jags. Under. The Raiders are my next. The Raiders 6.5. I actually think they're going to beat this and go 7-10. I look at their schedule. They've got some tough teams. They have the Broncos, Chiefs, and Chargers twice, and they're all playoff teams. That's going to be very challenging for them. I look at their where they stand in terms of needs. You know, they need a running back, they need a wide receiver, they need a linebacker, they need offensive line, they need a quarterback. So
do you think even with Geno, they
well,
still need a quarterback?
Geno, I guess maybe they might consider drafting a quarterback, but I do think Geno is credible, and I think the contract he got was legit, and I think that's probably a strong suit. But I had him drafting the running back Ashton Genty to fill that hole. But so I think they could go 7-10. I think they win 4 games at home and 3 on the road. I think they can beat the Jags. I think they can beat the Titans. I think they can beat the Giants, and I think they can beat the Browns, right? Those are pretty easy. The Texans, I think they can find a way to beat them once on the road, and the Colts, I think they can beat them once, and the Patriots, I think they can beat them. So that would get them to 7-10. Maybe they can pull off some something in their division, but man, that's a tough division. They got three teams that made the playoffs last year. The Chiefs went to the Super Bowl. The Broncos are going to be better, I think. The Chargers will probably be better too. So it's a very competitive division. All the coaches in there are Super Bowl coaches. So 7-10 is the best I think they can do, and that's a little better. That's much better than 4-13 that they were last year, and it goes over by half a game. Next, the Panthers. Panthers are 6.5. I look at their needs. You know, they need the safety, they need cornerback, wide receiver, defensive line. I have them, let's see, they were drafting at number 8.
You have them picking Tet McMillan.
Yeah, right. Tet McMillan to fill the wide receiver hole. They need much help on defense. The defense was one of the worst, if not the worst.
It was the worst.
It was the worst in the NFL last year, but I think they should give Bryce Young a little more help with this wide receiver who looks to be very, very good. I look at their schedule, and their picks. They've got picks in the first, second, and third round, 2 in the fourth, 3 in the fifth, and 1 in the seventh. So they got 9 picks, so they should be able to pick up some players. I think that their record 5-12 last year. The prediction is 6.5. I have them going 7-10, so I have them over, winning 2 more games than they won last year. I think they'll beat the Falcons. I think they'll beat the Dolphins. I think they'll beat the Cowboys at home. On the road, I think they can beat the Saints, the Cardinals, the Patriots, and the Jaguars. So I have them going 7-10. Next, the Bears, one of my favorite teams to evaluate, and they're picking number 10. 8.5. They won 5 games this past year. They have a brand new coach, never been a head coach in the NFL, highly touted as an offensive mind, but never been a head coach in the NFL. Their offensive line was a sieve last year. The Caleb Williams being sacked almost a record number of times, almost 70 times. They have other holes. They need an offensive line. Their offensive line, they've been out getting free agents, and they're probably going to. I have them drafting a free offensive lineman, and maybe even taking another one in the second round. The edge rushers, they need somebody there, and the running back, they need somebody to support Swift. They need a safety, and they need a tight end. So I think they've got a lot of holes still. I think they did a credible job in free agency to try to protect Caleb Williams, and I think they'll draft more in the draft offensive linemen. But they have a tough schedule. I mean, they're in another division that has playoff teams: the Lions, the Packers, the Vikings. So I have them under. I'm sorry, 7-10. They'll improve a couple of games over last year. Just too many question marks. Too tough a schedule. I haven't beaten the Lions once, the Packers once at home, the Giants at home, the Browns at home, and the Saints at home, and then only winning one game on the road, finding a way to beat the Vikings. So I'm sorry, 7-10. It's better than last year. I picked them at 5-12, and that's exactly what they came out. So have good luck with them. We'll see what happens. Okay, moving on to the Saints. Okay, so the Saints are 6.5. Just breaking news came out and said that Derek Carr's shoulder still hasn't healed correctly, and he may be a question mark about him being able to start. That may change their draft priorities depending on what quarterback's available. The guy that they had, what was his name?
Spencer Rattler was their
Spencer
backup.
Rattler did not play very well. I don't think they're sold on him. They got all kinds of holes: cornerback, offensive line, wide receiver, defensive line, and quarterback now with Derek Carr maybe not being able to play early on in the season anyway. They have picks at number 9, number 40 in the second round. They have a third-round pick, two fourth-rounds, a sixth, and two seventh-round picks. So they got quite a few picks. I think that I look at their schedule. It's their division has historically been kind of weak. It's been getting better. The Bucs have been a playoff team the last 2 years in a row. The Falcons have been trying to get better, but I don't think they're going to be much better this year. So I think they can beat the Falcons. I think they can beat the Panthers at home. I think they beat the Giants at home. On the road, I think they'll find a way to beat the Dolphins, and I think they'll beat the Titans. So that gives them 5 wins. They'll be 5-12 again, and they'll be under the 6.5. And finally, the New York team, New York Jets. Last year, 5-12. I look at their where they are weak. They've got lots of holes. Offensive line, wide receiver. They need somebody to complement Wilson. Tight end, safety, defensive end. So they have quite a few holes. I had them drafting Shedeur Sanders with their first pick. So he may not even play. They have Justin Fields. They're certainly going to give him a chance. So I think that was the draft pick for the future in picking Sanders. So he doesn't help fill any of these holes. In their picks, they have number 7 in the first round, number 42 in the second round. They have a third, a fourth, 2 fifths, and 2 sixths. So they got 8 picks. They should be able to do something with the second through fourth, which only gets to 110. There's still a lot of good players there. We'll see if they can fill some of these holes. I look at the over-under here. I have them, I think they can beat the Dolphins once. I think they can beat the Patriots. I think they can beat the Falcons and the Panthers, so that at home they have a reasonably easy schedule. On the road, I think they beat the Jags and the Saints. They also have a home game against the Browns. I have them losing that one. They might be able to pick that one up. But all in, I have them at 6-11, so they're over. The odds makers pick them 5.5, so over. And those are my picks.
Very interesting. I think that you luckily fell into that Saints one. You picked under, at like 2 p.m. today, and the news just broke less than an hour ago, I think.
Yeah, well, I didn't think they were, even with Derek Carr, he hasn't played that well for them.
That's true. Well, he also was banged.
Every
time he gets hit, it seems like he goes down.
I don't know. I think I don't see him.
One thing that you still
good.
haven't escaped is this one right here. The Bryce Young, the bounce quarterback from last year.
He was bounced. He did bounce. He did bounce. He played well once he came back off being benched. His quarterback rating was much better than last year.
Well, yeah, right? It could be much worse.
I know. That's why I picked him to be the bounce quarterback. He was the bounce quarterback.
Well, initially, there was egg on your face.
No, but it's how you end. It's not how you begin.
That's true, and I'll give you that because he got benched for Andy Dalton, who then came out that first game, and it was like, oh my God, Bryce Young's never getting back in there, and then Andy Dalton fell apart, and then Bryce Young comes back, and I'll give it to you. He did play pretty effectively down the stretch, so we'll do that bounce quarterback thing once again a little bit later on in the offseason. But yeah, we're going to take a quick break. But coming up, we got a lot to talk about. Trevor Lawrence is making a statement about his injury and about the vibes in Jacksonville after Liam Cohen replaced Doug Peterson as their next head coach, as well as my top 5 true NBA Finals contenders. There's a lot of talk about which teams could actually make it. I'll give you my top 5 list right after this break.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the comment.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Friday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of tonight's show, which is
Trevor Lawrence. He spoke with reporters on Wednesday and talked about the vibes in Jacksonville. Let's see what he had to say here. He says, it feels great, just the energy in the building, just to have all the guys back in the building. Bring some energy, some juice. I know from a player's standpoint, everybody's excited. Everybody in the locker room is pumped to be back. And the coaching side, you can feel the energy and excitement. So, Nate, what are your expectations for the Jaguars in 2025? You heard what I had to say just a minute ago.
Oh, I did. We talked about the Liam Cohen signing, and we didn't necessarily have a problem with the signing as much as how he got signed. I think people misconstrued that a little bit as we don't think he's a great coach. We had an issue with the fact that he told the Bucs one thing and then did something else. So I just want to clear that up. We don't think he's necessarily a terrible coach, although some numbers actually say otherwise. It was not a good thing to do. It was just flat out not a good thing to do. Tell the Bucs one thing and then go behind the back and then sign with the Jacksonville Jaguars. It was not a good thing to do. But when it comes to Liam Cohen and this team, Trevor Lawrence needs a lot of work. Because we saw he had one really good season. And then the Jaguars are like, you know what? Let's sign him to a $55 million per year on average contract when he didn't earn it. He won one playoff game in a comeback victory against the Chargers, who were historically known for choking in the playoffs. So let's take a look at Trevor Lawrence the last 15 starts, because I do think that's a decent sample size. That's that's about one season. So let's bring it up. This is your $55 million a year quarterback. 2-13 record in the last 15 games, 61% completion percentage, 6.9 yards an attempt, 28 touchdowns to 18 turnovers, and an 83 passer rating. So if this team's going to go anywhere, it's going to be because your quarterback improved. Because if he doesn't, well, then you'll just end up in the same spot of not performing very well, losing game after game after game in what has been, over the past few seasons, the worst division in football. Liam Cohen, though. We all take a look at the OC of the Bucs last year. Like, you know what? Offensive mind, offensive guru. Well, he's been an offensive coordinator for two teams, one of which was the 2022 Los Angeles Rams. The passing offense was ranked 27th. The rushing offense ranked 27th. The total offense was ranked 32nd. So not great. Not great. Well, on the Bucs, we have to remember, the Bucs, as everybody talks about with Tom Brady, that team was stacked. And Baker Mayfield, even before that, Liam Cohen didn't reinvent Baker Mayfield. That was Dave Canales, because we saw Baker Mayfield going from a 2,000, 3,000 passing yard a season quarterback with a lot of turnovers and a couple touchdowns to being a consistent 4,000-yard passer. He had 28 touchdowns, 10 picks with Dave Canales. And when the offense just naturally picked up, because Baker Mayfield's now year 2 under Todd Bowles, and also you have Mike Evans, you have Chris Godwin, an offensive line that improved because Brady's offensive line in 2022 was banged up and just overall just terrible. Tight end group obviously improved. The team got older, so obviously with more experience they're going to be better, and Baker Mayfield benefited from that. And also Mayfield's demeanor has completely changed from his time in Cleveland to now his time in Tampa Bay. So while we could say, yes, Baker Mayfield maybe looked a little bit better here and there with Liam Cohen, overall, Baker Mayfield, the player, has remained relatively the same. So while I will give some props to Liam Cohen for continuing that process and not obliterating what Dave Canales did, I'm not going to say all of a sudden, oh my God, Liam Cohen's a quarterback whisperer. because we just haven't seen that yet. So I'm going to take a look at the fact that the Jaguars need a lot of work. Their defense was, I think, one of the worst. I think it may have been 31st in defense last year, so they need to work on that. I have them drafting Mason Graham to help up that defensive line, but they could also go cornerback. They could go wide receiver, although they have Gabe Davis. They have, obviously, Brian Thomas Jr., who actually performed very, very well. Tight end, you might want to look at that situation maybe down the line. Offensive line could definitely improve. I don't think Robert Hainsey was a great pickup at center. He was with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and didn't perform very well. But I think if this team's going to go anywhere, it's going to be at the hands of the fact that Trevor Lawrence is an improved quarterback. And if he does not improve, if he does not live up to the $55 million a year contract that he was given for what? Again, this is a big thing. It's a projection. He was supposed to be this generational talent that has not lived up to that whatsoever. So if he doesn't improve, this team is going to go nowhere, in my opinion. So that's what I think. The expectations, they're in the worst division in football. They should at least compete decently.
Yeah. How much was he guaranteed?
I'll bring up that number throughout your take.
So, he's had a lot to say here. Just recently, we gave a quote, and he's expressed optimism about his recovery from his shoulder surgery, saying he expects to be perfectly good for the 25 season. His offseason plan is focused on pacing himself and gradually working up to full throwing capacity, with some initial limitations on throws and handoff drills. He stressed the importance of players, buying into the new coach, Liam Cohen, vision and the team's new identity, emphasizing the responsibility of players to take the scheme and believe in it. Acknowledge that he and the team have accountability for the season's results, and expressed a desire to get back to being the player he knows he can be. Stated his faith is his foundation, and emphasized that football is important but not the biggest thing in his life. So those are the things he had to say. I think they'll be lucky to win, as I said, you go back to my pick, my prediction here. I think they'll be lucky to win 5 games, and that would be one better than last year. I think the new coach is some prima donna qualities to him. The way he treated the Bucs, I thought was unethical. And coming into this situation, he's a brand new coach. He's going to try to sell these guys on his scheme. If it works, they'll buy in. If it doesn't, I start losing the locker room, and who knows what will happen. Trevor Lawrence, to me, is a huge question mark. $55 million a year quarterback for what, as you said? And we don't. It was betting on the future. He's a generational talent. Well, he hasn't shown it so far. He did have one good playoff game. He brought him back from a big deficit against the Chargers, and they won that game. Since then, he's been very poor, and he's been getting hurt. So I don't see it. I think 5-12 is where they come out.
To answer your question, 200 of the $275 million
$200 million guaranteed.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
I'm glad football's important to him.
What's funny is that I think that the football is not the key thing in his life. I think he said that like a few years ago, too.
Yeah.
So not a great look.
Oh, I don't begrudge him for his faith, but,
When you're starting quarterback in the NFL, just going to throw that out here.
And you're guaranteed $200 million.
This is your job.
Yeah.
You're getting paid hundreds of $millions to play football.
You better pray that you're going to be healthy and that you're going to do your best.
So far, he hasn't been. That's been the key issue here. Yeah. I think overall, though, Trevor Lawrence, like I said, all he has to do is improve. This team needs a stable quarterback, and the stable situation has not come from the general manager, because I believe this will be his second general manager and his, third head coach so far in his extremely young career. And I will also point out that he's had more talent, he's had more stability than Daniel Jones, and Jones has better numbers. Daniel Jones was in a worse situation with the New York Giants than Trevor Lawrence was with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and in the same amount of games, Daniel Jones has been a better quarterback. One got paid $55 million, the other one got paid $40 million. And they each have one playoff win. So if Trevor Lawrence is Daniel Jones 2.0, I'd be very concerned if I was a Jacksonville Jaguars fan overall. Let's get to our final topic of today's show.
Okay, we're going to be taking a look at the NBA playoffs, which are just around the corner here. So it's time to take a look at the new segment we call the Harvey Hierarchy NBA edition. Nate, what are your top 5 true NBA final contenders?
Well, a lot of people have this question about, who's going to make the NBA Finals. And as it currently stands, the Oklahoma City Thunder, who have been extremely dominant in the Western Conference, they currently have the best odds to win the NBA Finals. But let's begin with my top 5, I said. So let's begin with the number 5 pick, which I have is the Houston Rockets. Ime Udoka is doing what he's always done, especially with the Boston Celtics. An incredible defensive mind, a defensive master, and he's created a defensive monster with the Houston Rockets, and that's exactly what they've become this entire season. They're 4th in points allowed and also 5th in defensive rating, 4th in total net rating. This team is not afraid of anybody, and you see that in the way that they portray themselves, the way that they play. They will get into it with anybody, including people on the bench. Dylan Brooks, everybody knows that Dylan Brooks' whole thing on the court is to piss the leader of your team off, whether it be Klay Thompson, whether it be Steph Curry, whether it be LeBron, whether it be whoever you want to say. The leader of your team, Dylan Brooks, is going to come after you. Draymond Green even. So I think that the way that they put themselves on the court, the way that Dylan Brooks portrays himself on the court, I think that this team will put some fear into some people, especially you come out defensively. What they just did against Steph Curry, only giving them 3 points, that's bad. That's really, really bad if you're any other team. They're number 1 in rebounds in the NBA, number 1 in offensive rebounds, so you know they're going to get those second chance opportunities. Thompson has been a very, very key piece for them. Şengün as well has also been a monster. He's averaging a double-double, and those 2 players, Thompson and Şengün, are their 2 best, their 2 number 2 defenders. So they're a great defensive team, and here's the big thing. Against the top-tier teams in the NBA, seeds 1 through 4 in the East, and 1, 3, 4, and 5 because they're number 2 seed. 1, 3, 4, and 5 in the West, they're 14 and 10. So they have a winning record against the top 8 teams in the NBA, and they're only one of 2 teams to sweep the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are currently the number 1 seed in the East. So I got a lot of faith in them. I think that they're still a relatively young team, and I think that offensively, they don't shoot the 3 ball that well. And in today's NBA, that's kind of what you need to succeed in the long term, because the Boston Celtics, we just saw them win the NBA Finals, and they were the highest 3-point shooting team over the past probably 2 or 3 seasons. So give me the Rockets at number 5. I think their defensive performance can shock a team or 2 early in the playoffs. Let's go with my number 4 pick, which is the Oklahoma City Thunder. I know, the NBA title favorites are my number 4 team. Well, let's talk about it. I'll give them credit right now. Monster regular season. A lot of props for that. SGA is probably going to win the MVP, although I think Jokic has been a better MVP candidate. He's having an NBA historic season. He's averaging nearly a 30-point triple-double, which I think will be, the 3rd all-time player to average a triple-double for a season. But currently, they're 66-14. They play the Jazz tonight, so my guess is that'll be 65-14 by the time tonight ends. SGA this season is averaging over nearly 33 points a game, which is number 1 in the NBA. 5 rebounds a game, 6 assists with 1.7 steals per game, while also shooting a very nice 37.5% from 3. As a team, they're number 4 in points per game and number 3 in points allowed, 3rd in offensive rating, number 1 in defensive rating, and number 1 in net rating. And if I'm not mistaken, their net rating would be the highest in NBA history. So this is a great team on both sides of the court, offensively and defensively. But here's what's interesting. Against the top teams in the NBA, so Boston, the Lakers, Houston, the Warriors, Cleveland, and Denver, they have an 11-8 record against them. They're 55-6 against everybody else. And I'm actually going to deduct one of those wins because when it comes to the Golden State Warriors, Stephen Curry didn't play, and the Warriors were starting a unit of players, which a couple of them I don't think are on the team anymore. So maybe we could deduct one of those wins. So I'm going to call it 10-8 if you want to say that. I think right now, we take a look at the SGA, free throw merchant, people like to call him. Will he get the whistle that he gets in the regular season? My guess is no. I think they'll swallow the whistle, and we've seen in a couple games lately that once refs swallow the whistle, his effectiveness gets diminished a lot. And if the Thunder are going to go anywhere, they need him to get that whistle. They need him to drop 30, 40 points just because, while they're a good team all around, nobody fears them. So teams are just going to dominate, I think, on both sides of the court against them if FSGA does not get the whistle. This is an extremely young team, but a very talented team, with Chet Holmgren, Isaiah Hartenstein, Jalen Williams, Lou Dort, Aaron Wiggins putting in crucial minutes off the bench here. I think for the Thunder, it's all about matchups. You get a fortunate matchup, this team could go to the Western Conference Finals. You get an unfavorable matchup, you may lose in round one. Just going to put that out. Let's go my number 3 team, the Los Angeles Lakers here. I think the big thing is, obviously, let's get the bad side out of the way already. They're not a good defensive team. They don't have size against a lot of teams. They're not a great rebounding team. So, and they're also, overall defensively, if you want to take a look at the statistics of it, they're 22nd in steals, 22nd in blocks. So, and they're also not a great three-point shooting team as well. Now let's go to the good side of it. Let's start with the initial one. Let's get all the stats out of the way first. They're 5th in 2-point percentage, so their mid-range game, close game is phenomenal. They're also, they also get to the foul line the second most in the NBA. So they get the nice, what I like to call free points, because they should be. You get to put up a lot of points, stop the clock, maybe regain some of your energy on the free throw line. And also, with everybody healthy, I think overall the Lakers can be a very dominant team. We just saw what Luka Doncic looks like when he gets angry, when he gets motivated. Will he be that way in the playoffs? I think he will be. Absolutely, I think he will be. And we just saw against the Mavs, when they kicked him to the curb for, still, I don't even understand the reason. What, because he was out of shape? I'm pretty sure Jokic is like nearly 300 pounds, and we consider him one of the best players in the NBA right now, if not the best, and we're arguing he's the best center of all time now. So I think it doesn't matter that the Mavs didn't like the way he brought himself onto the court. He was overweight, not taking care of his body. I care about production. What did he do on the court? Oh, he was, a 5-time All-NBA player? I think that's pretty damn good. I think when healthy, this team could be absolutely tremendous, and I think they can make a serious run if they are all healthy. And I think that we already saw them against the Warriors. They can cause a lot of damage. The Thunder, they can cause a lot of damage. And I think they probably could have beaten the Thunder in the last game they played if Luka doesn't get ejected for a stupid technical foul. Houston, I think they could cause some damage. Denver, just with the... I don't think they're going to be motivated, or rather, I don't think the production on the court is going to matter. They may be motivated, but I think the production on the court won't matter when you don't have a great head coach and Michael Malone no longer there. And yes, they got a very nice victory in the first game without Malone, but I think when it comes to playoff time, you need that mastermind to draw up the plays, to help you out situationally, and right now I don't think Denver has that. But I think that when it comes down to it, LeBron will still give you 2 to 3 really, really good games in the playoffs when it matters. Now, will he do it for all 4, all 5, all 6, all 7? No. But can he give you 2 or 3 really good games when maybe Luka can't hit a shot, when overall the team offensively is relatively stagnant? I think he still can, because I do consider him the best player of all time. So, and I think Luka, once again, he's a traffic cone on defense. You're not going to expect him to go out there and be dominant on defense. You're just expecting him to score a bunch of points, drop 35, 6, and 8, and be effective. And that's what I think he'll do, because that's what he's done basically his entire career. And I also give props to one guy, Austin Reeves, who since the middle of March, I think March 13, he's been insane, averaging 25 points a game, 5 rebounds, 5 assists on 42.1% shooting from 3. If he gets hot, Lakers are going to be very, very dangerous. So they're my number 3 team. Let's go to my number 2 team, the Cleveland Cavaliers. So let's get the first statistics out of the way. They're the best offensive team in the NBA, 122.2 points per game, and they also have a 122.2 offensive rating. Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, all having massive impacts this season. DeAndre Hunter has been a huge addition for them. From the trade, with the trade from Atlanta, he's averaging 14 points, 4 boards, with 42.6% shooting from 3 off the bench, giving them crucial minutes, dropping a lot of points. They've only been swept by 2 teams this season. They've been incredibly dominant. They've caused problems for the New York Knicks. They've caused problems for the Boston Celtics. They've caused problems for a bunch of teams in the NBA this year. They swept the Denver Nuggets, the New York Knicks, the Golden State Warriors, the Los Angeles Lakers. Swept them all. And if we realize those are some of the top teams in the NBA right now. Now, again, I think the Knicks are the only 50-win team, at least in my memory, that nobody has any lick of confidence in. But still, they did sweep them, and they're also the Knicks are the number 3 seed in the NBA. I think the combo of Evan Mobley and Jared Allen down low is a big no-go zone for any opponent, because they have been the best defenders on their team, and they've been one of the best defensive big men in the NBA this season. And also, if we're just talking about historically, this is their first 60-plus win season since LeBron carried them to the NBA Finals in the 2017-18 season. So if history will repeat itself, I think the Cavs are going to be very, very dangerous when it comes to the postseason, which is just in a few days from now. Let's go to the number one team. Obviously, I think this doesn't really have to be said, but because I made the list, the Boston Celtics are the number one team, in my opinion, to be true title contenders. They won the finals last year, so this is just purely out of respect, and also partially, obviously, due to performance. If they were a 42-win team, they wouldn't be number one on the list. As it currently stands, they're top 10 in two-point percentage, free throw percentage, rebounds per game, blocks per game, turnovers, fouls, and points per game. They're the deepest team in the NBA. They have 3 players who, by the time the season ends, will all have over 250 three-pointers made, which is utterly ridiculous. Now, Peyton Pritchard and Jason Tatum still need 3 each to get to that mark, but they probably will eventually get there to make that statement fully true. They're each at 247. I think they'll get to 250 by the time the season ends. Tatum, another phenomenal regular season, 27 points per game, 27, 9, 6 splits. He's been incredible this year. Porzingis is back. He's healthy. He's playing tremendous. Hit a big-time 3 in overtime against the New York Knicks. Al Horford giving you crucial minutes. I think this team right now is the best team in the NBA. I know the record doesn't say it is, but I think that when it comes down to playoff time, last postseason, if they out-rebounded you, they won every single game. They were undefeated when they out-rebounded every team. So if they just continue to do that, I mean, Luke Cornett, I think got, 14 rebounds recently. So if you have Luke Cornett dropping 14 boards, having a very deep bench, an effective bench, Peyton Pritchard coming off the bench, and he could give you 6 threes from off the bench. Also, Sam Hauser could drop 6 threes at any given time. I think that this team is going to be extremely dangerous. They do, as they have needed to the past few years, have to work on their second half consistency, and in clutch situations, they have to remain consistent. We've seen them fall off, and particularly, they were up big against the Cavs at one point and squandered, I think it was like a 20-point lead, squandered it, and then lost. So if the Celtics can get that second half consistency and clutch time situation better, I think this team will go back-to-back as NBA title winners. So yeah, those are my top 5 most likely NBA Finals contenders.
That's an interesting list. Can you put it back up there? Okay, so I think the teams that are playing well going into the playoffs, some of them may not be as highly ranked, but they're on a roll. Think about the Miami Heat a couple of years ago, right? They had injuries. Nobody thought they were going to do anything. They almost blew it in the play-in. They wound up going to the finals. So sometimes it's the teams that are playing well. You didn't mention the Warriors. They picked up Jimmy Butler. They went on a huge run. Now they're number 6 in the in the Western Division. They need to win a couple here at the end to make sure they stay there. I like their chances. I mean, you look at where the seedings will be. It looks like the Lakers and the Warriors would play against one another. That's going to be a very good series. Who would you like in that series, Lakers or Warriors?
I'll take the Lakers in 6.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. And the other team, I would say, I agree with you in the Celtics. They finished the season strong here. They've been playing their top 6 guys here in the last game. They lost that game, but they're 8-2 in their last 10. Cleveland looks strong too. They're 7-3 in their last 10. The Pacers 8-2 in their last 10. OKC 8-2 in their last 10. You have them ranked number 4.
Nobody fears them.
The power rankings have them at number 1.
Then the number 1 team in the NBA, so I can understand that.
And the Cavaliers, you have it 2. The power rankings have them at 2.
The second best team in the NBA.
So I like the Celtics too. I think it'll be the Celtics against OKC at the end here. You don't have the Nuggets. I mean, the Nuggets, nope. They fired their head coach. They're in turmoil at the moment.
They would have been my number 5 team.
And Jamal Murray's had injuries here. Who knows how good he'll be in the playoffs, so they're probably out of it. So that's an interesting list, Nate. We'll have to see what happens.
I think that when it comes down to it, I know I don't have the Knicks on here. No, like I mentioned.
The Knicks you never even mentioned.
Well, yeah, I mentioned them in a negative way. You know why? Because like I said, they're the only team in my memory that I can remember to be a 50-plus win team that nobody has any confidence in, and there's one reason why. But they're 0-13 against the top teams in the NBA, against the Celtics, Cavs, and Thunder.
Yeah.
They're 0-13. If you're 0-13 against the best teams, how the hell are you going to make it far? Everybody has them as a round 2 limit. You're not going to get beyond round 2.
And how about the Clippers? They've won
The
13,
Clippers are an up-and-coming team. They're a very interesting one.
Yeah. They're
Kawhi, healthy,
13
playing
out
tremendous.
of their last 15 they've won, and they're plus 17 net rating.
No, they've been incredible as of late. Kawhi's healthy. Everybody's healthy. James Harden. I mean, they could be a decently tough team. Currently, they would play Denver. I may give them that series.
Yeah.
I may pick Clippers in 7. Just because Jokic, and I actually said this, and I heard it today, but I didn't hear it before I said it on last show. What Jokic is doing is reminiscent about what LeBron did in the early Cavs when he carried them. I mentioned that on the last show when we talked about Mike Malone, and I heard it today on one of the sports talk shows today. Jokic is carrying a team. He's never had an all-star teammate. He's carrying this team to success. That's what LeBron did in his early Cavs days. Carried them to an NBA Finals, got swept by the Spurs. And so if Jokic is going to somehow do that, the Cavs will beat him. Boston will beat him. If the Knicks beat the Celtics in round 2,
That ain't gonna happen.
if the Knicks beat the Celtics in round 2, they're making it to the finals.
Yeah.
100%. Because they've gone toe-to-toe with the Cavs and have fallen apart in the fourth quarter.
The Knicks didn't beat the Celtics at all this season. The most recent game, Jalen Brunson out there, 27 points. I think he had 8 or 10 assists. They still lost in overtime. So I don't see the Knicks beating the Celtics.
If they do, though, because they've gone toe-to-toe very nicely with the Cavs in a few games here.
Yeah.
They've gone toe-to-toe with the Thunder and then have fallen apart late.
How about the Pacers?
I have no faith in them. No disrespect to Indiana, but
Tyrese
no
Halliburton, Pascal Siakam.
I go say Obi Toppin. I know they just beat up on the Denver Nuggets, but the Nuggets absolutely choked that game. No, I don't have faith in them. I think that, again, they're probably the same level, round 2 hit probably.
Yeah,
So currently they would play the Milwaukee Bucks. I may give the Pacers that series.
Yeah. I think the Rockets, they've...
Defense wins championships.
What a
That's the
turnaround!
mentality.
What a turnaround compared to last season, right? They're the very improved, but I just don't think they don't have any experience in the playoffs. So I think they're going to get knocked out. That's sort of the same thing with OKC. I think they have Alexander and then a very good defense. I don't know, and they don't have that much experience in the playoffs. The Cavaliers, I mean, they're going to be revenge on the Celtics. Right?
Very well.
From last year's playoff series. So it's going to be really interesting. I think you got a good list there. My thought would be it's going to be the Celtics and OKC in the finals. And I'd like to see the Celtics win it.
Back-to-back champions.
Yeah.
All right, that wraps up today's show. We thank you for the constant support as always. Part 2 of the Mock Draft Tuesday, picks 11 to 21, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But for this episode of the Harvey Hour, my name is Nathan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. We have been your hosts of the Harvey Hour. Catch us Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.
Good night, Grandpa.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.